The recording will start now. Just to give you an overview of the agenda of today, we divided the policy roundtable of today in different sessions. So we'll start with the introduction, an opening session, followed by a plenary discussion around three main topics about protein diversification, policy support, economic development, and we'll finish our meeting of today with some closing remarks and next steps to follow. I would now like to give the word to Paul Webb, who's head of Department Green Europe at RIA. So Paul, please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. And yes, I am the head of department for Green Europe at the European Research Executive Agency. In my department, we are responsible mostly for the implementation of Cluster 6 of Horizon Europe and the societal challenges that went before. And when I say implementation, this is the Commission's way of talking. I mean, we're well aware that we don't actually implement projects at all. It's you who do that, but we are responsible for selecting the projects, signing the contracts, monitoring the projects, and of course paying for them, which is not unimportant in the research world. I'd like to thank you very much anyway for taking the time to attend this roundtable organised by the HORIZON4PROTEINS cluster of projects, looking at different aspects of alternative proteins. I see insects, microalgae, edible fungi. Executive agency, we are committed to high standards in our support to projects and that we fund, and I hope that people from the projects do feel that commitment. You'll see some of my colleagues here, and particularly Amanda, who is the project officer for the 6 projects that will be involved today. But we're also very highly committed to ensuring that research and innovation results that come out of our different projects are used to influence policy developments within the EU, because we know that research is good, but it's never enough by itself. It needs to lead to something concrete. And that's why we love the clustering of projects. We love seeing clusters grow and develop, and that's what I see here, with 2 new projects joining recently. And I hope that that will allow you to keep the cluster going after the original projects finish. And I understand this particular meeting was a result of the project reviews that were carried out recently. We felt collectively that it was the moment for your projects to come together with the policy officers from various Directorate Generals involved working on aspects in the field of novel foods. And that's a good thing. Just shows the real link between the projects, the researchers going on, and the policy area. And it's an important emphasis for Horizon Europe in general. In some areas of our work at RIA, the legislation and technology is relatively stable. It's developing, but it's been going for a long time and quite slowly developing. What I see in this cluster is that the technology is developing very fast, and the policy is very fast moving, perhaps not even there yet, still in development. And I'm sure today that's why there are so many policy directorates general represented, because you really are working at the interface of research and policy, and that makes it quite exciting. We've got a number of Directorate Generals who wanted to be here, from agriculture, health, grow, DG Mare, for example, on the fisheries. And I think that's a living proof of the interest across the Commission in your research. Also, the shared interest in having a strong evidence base for policy making. And one of the main aims of Horizon Europe, one of the new things that we wanted to do in Horizon Europe, was to really ensure that right across the Commission, people are taking interest in the research. And I think that we've done that. So I want to thank you for your efforts, your dedication to your research. I know that whenever we have researchers in the same space, even virtually, we get a lot of energy, we got a lot of ideas, and I'm looking forward to that today. So I wish you all a good meeting. I'm going to listen in for a while, and I know that Amanda will provide me with feedback in due course. You have a very full programme. I think it's quite ambitious, because I know that researchers do have a lot to say, a lot of important things to say. So the timing I know will be quite tight. So I'm going to stop here now and hand over to Marie from NextGenProteins. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul, for this very nice welcome words. Before I start with introducing today's roundtable, I would like just to invite you all to use the Mentimeter, which is a tool we decided to use today for interaction with the audience. So along the different slides, along the different sessions of today, you will see different codes appearing. So please use it, interact with us, and we'll show you the results along today's event. Just for housekeeping again, also please, when not talking, mute yourself, and if you don't want to, you can also turn off your cameras. So as an introduction, why are we doing this policy roundtable today? We heard it already in Paul's word. The main idea of HORIZON4PROTEINS to organize the roundtable today was really to engage the discussion, to engage the conversation with the policymakers, to see how can we unlock the potential of alternative proteins in the EU. Well, that's the main aim. And just to give you a background of what is HORIZON4PROTEINS, we heard it already roughly, but basically it's a collaboration of different research-funded projects, EU-funded projects, that decided to unite force to work together on different aspects, such as consumer acceptance, as policy, as safety, as regulation, to be able to address better these issues together. The whole collaboration was initiated in 2021 with 4 projects funded under Horizon 2020, NextGenProteins, ProFuture, Smart Protein, and SUSINCHAIN. You will hear more about the single projects in a moment. And this year, 2 Horizon Europe funded projects joined us, the Giant Leaps project and the Like-a-Pro project. You'll also hear about them in a moment. In total, we represent around 198 participants, covers to show the implication, and not only researcher, but really covering the whole value chain. So from the farmers, producers, researchers, retailers. So really trying to, and policymakers and NGOs, really covering all the different aspects along the chain of alternative proteins. What is HORIZON4PROTEINS in a few words doing? Because to say we have a cluster collaboration is nice, but what concretely are we working on? So we started with webinars to inform about the background, about the result, about the work we are doing. Then we organized special session at scientific conference, like for example the EFSA last year. We are organizing policy roundtable like 2 days, and another one scheduled this year in September. We are having joint social media campaign to show that we are working together on the same topic, to show the importance of the topic. We are working jointly on the different project final conferences, because 3 of the Horizon 2020 projects are going to end this year in September. So they are preparing their final event to really show all the outcomes of the research that has been done. And we prepared a special session at the climate conference last November in Egypt. We jointly used the service provided by the EU, the Horizon Result Booster, to even strengthen our collaboration, our power of working together. And we worked on a policy brief that will be released this month, shortly after the policy roundtable of today. And I would take a few minutes just to go through the points of what this policy brief contains. The idea of the HORIZON4PROTEINS policy brief is really to say that alternative protein can be an effective mitigation and adaptation strategy towards a more resilient food system. So that's really the base behind that. And to say to do that, our opinion, our position would be that we can build on existing policy and regulatory tool and see how to integrate these aspects of the alternative protein in different elements, such as labeling and marketing standards, public food procurement, equal tax system, data protection in the sense of protecting the data, and maybe with this protection hindering or challenging the innovation or the speed of the innovation, and subsidies. So we'll hear a little bit about that today in the different sessions and different discussions. As I said, you have the possibility to interact with the Mentimeter, so please feel free to ask your questions there. and go on. So I'm stopping talking here. I will go through a short tour de table to show you maybe who is attending today concretely from the different DGs, from the different institutions and from the different projects, so that you have an overview. And after that, we'll go on with presenting the EU policies and strategies, presenting the projects, and then starting with the real discussion. So maybe I will ask from DG AGRI. I think we have Laurent Mercier in the line. Would you like to say a word to introduce yourself, Laurent?
Yes, thank you very much. I will. And I'm working in the unit from DG AGRI dealing with arable crops. And for the moment, I mostly work on the EU policy for plant protein. I'm accompanied by 4 other colleagues from DG AGRI, or at least who are attached to DG AGRI, one from the unit of research, and 2 who are, and I will explain it, working specifically for the moment on alternative proteins within the context of the EU plant protein policy. So why am I working, and are we working now on this topic? Because the Commission announced in March last year that its intention to review the policy and priorities identified in 2018 in a report on the development of plant protein in the EU. This review that we would start, and we are now working on it, aims to be comprehensive, and it will look at supply and demand side, both on the feed and food segment, and it will analyze the import dependency for those questions. And it will also explore for developing plant-based and alternative proteins in the EU. It will analyze the demands for protein in livestock sector and consider the way to increase plant-based protein in human diet. As regards alternative proteins, which is the topic of today, DG AGRI has been reinforced by a team of colleagues from other DG to really to work on this question of alternative protein, and the 2 of them, as I mentioned, are present today. I will leave the meeting very soon, Elas, but I will be back at 12. But in the meantime, I'm sure those colleagues will contribute to the discussion you will have. If I may, again, I'll come back to the ultimate objective of exercise is to increase the food security also in reducing the impact on the environment and on the climate, both in the EU and globally. And the work that we'll do will go beyond the CAP. And compared to the previous 2018 report, we will that was very focused on the higher protein crops in the EU. This review will also look at the demand side, which is, so we have a broader scope. Let me also mention some important initiatives that takes place for the moment as regards protein, and I'm sure you are aware about it. First, the European Parliament is now preparing a report on the EU protein strategy. I send it to you, at least to your coordinator. I don't know if you received it. That's for the moment at the level of draft, but you can already notice that it is really focusing on the supply side of protein, in particular supply of plant protein. They do not really mention the challenge of adjusting the EU livestock to the capacity of the EU to absorb the environmental impact of the livestock. They do not also mention the role that consumer could play in this transition. Also, it is interesting to see the list of policy actions in this report, and we see that most of them are beyond agriculture. That's not a big surprise, but still it is interesting to note it. Also, I would like to mention to close my little introduction that the European Economic and Social Committee adopted a report last October on sustainable plant protein. And this report is really quite comprehensive also. So it has quite a broad scope. I really encourage you to have a look at it because I think it gives a clear indication where the policy could go in general. And to close my words, we aim at delivering our let's say protein policy or plant protein policy in the first quarter of 2024. So thank you for listening, and also I hope that I will be able to join at around 12. In the meantime, I wish you a good discussion.
Thank you, Laurent. This is interesting. Then we have from DG AGRI, a colleague of yours, Amalia. Amalia, would you like to say a short word about yourself?
No, I work with Laurent, so everything that he said is fine.
I think I covered all the. I presented all the colleagues of DG AGRI, and perhaps you can move to another DG if it's fine for you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So from DG Climate, we have Marie Pouliken as well with us, which I believe is working with you, Laurent, on the protein strategy. So
yes,
Marie,
exactly.
do you want to add some word? No?
Not necessarily. Maybe only that other JP also covering the strategy more specifically on plant-based product.
Thank you very much. And we have Melissa as well, who's working with you on the same strategy, I believe, but from DG EMPRO. Correct?
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Thanks
I used
for
to be
joining.
in DG Agri, and now I'm moving DGs, but still working with DG Agri indeed on the protein review. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Then we have from DG Growth, Jonas. I don't know if you are here with us. Yes. Good morning, Jonas.
Yeah, hello, good morning. Here today we are Blaga Popova and myself representing DG Grow, and we work in the unit F3, which represents the food industry, and we follow closely all the Food 2030, Cluster 6 and Horizon 4 protein activities. So that's our contribution today.
Thank you, Jonas. Thank you, Blaga. From DG SANTE, we have Alice who joined us today. Alice, would you like to say a word?
Yes, hello, I'm Alice Upinaca. I'm policy officer in the unit in DG SANTE dealing with the general implementation of the Farm to Fork strategy, and we're also developing a legislative proposal on a framework for an EU sustainable food system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice. From DG RTD, we have Cindy, who's also the policy officer from the HORIZON4PROTEINS project. Cindy, would you like to say a word?
Yes, hello, thank you very much. Indeed, I am Cindy Schumacher from DG RTD Unit B2 on food systems and bioeconomy, and I am the policy officer for all these great projects on alternative proteins. I really look forward to the discussion later on, and I would like to already thank you for this initiative to organize such meetings. I think it's going to be quite interesting both for the project but also for us policy officers, because it's a great opportunity for us to know what you're doing and also what are the questions you might have and the difficulties you might have. And on the other way around, it's good for you to know what's going on at the Commission right now. Sometimes it can be confusing, so that's good that we have several DGs explaining what's going on. So thanks a lot for this initiative, and I look forward in it to the discussion.
Thank you, Cindy. Then we have from Ria. You heard already Paul, who welcomed everyone. I don't know, Paul, if you want to add something to that.
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Paul. And then we have some colleagues of you. I think, Amanda, I'm not sure who's online. Do you want to introduce yourself, Amanda, shortly as a project officer from the HORIZON4PROTEINS project?
Yes, thank you so much, Mary, and welcome everyone. And thank you, Paul, for the opening words. No, I'm just a proud project officer, highly committed to work with this cluster of projects. I like to think that you're on autopilot, clustering, communicating, and working so well. But I have to say, from the management side, you're some of the top coordinators really implementing everything to the best you can, and I'm just happy to support you. So I'm listening in today with great interest. I'll be putting some things on social media, but yes, I'm here to support you, and I'm happy to work with Cindy, who's been my great sister on the policy side. So she's been a great exchange between us to prepare this meeting. So thank you so much. And I represent the B2 unit, which is Farm to Fork, Communities and Climate. And my head of unit is Matthias Langemeyer, and Dominika Traska is helping me, and my whole team of colleagues, about 50 of us in the unit, working to help you with your projects. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Then we have some people from EFSA. As I'm not sure if Amolaus is already there. Oh, good morning.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Do you want to say a few words introducing your work at EFSA, especially in the group of novel food, I believe?
Of course, of course. So I'm Ermolos Ververis. I'm a scientific officer in the Nutrition and Food Innovation Unit of EFSA, and indeed I work in the novel foods team. We do not do anything related to policy here at EFSA. We do the risk assessment of these products, but our outputs are used by the policymakers to design strategies and make legislation, etc. Some of the alternative proteins, they fall under the novel food regulation, and actually it's among the novel food trends that we have observed the last 5 years. We receive a lot of dossiers on new proteins and new sources of protein, and I'm here to see to be informed of what is being done by the academia and research side, especially related to parameters that are linked to the safety of these new products. And actually also EFSA fosters a collaboration among different actors in the field, and we organize different kind of events also to get ourselves informed and exchange knowledge. And last week we had the scientific colloquium in Brussels on cell culture, dry foods and food ingredients, which is one of among the upcoming protein sources that they aspire to have their sale in the European market. So I don't want to say anything more for the time being, but I'm very happy to follow the conversations today. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Amolaus, for this introduction. Now I would like to ask the representative from the different Horizon4Proteins project to introduce themselves. So I'll start with NextGenProteins. Sven, if you'd like to introduce your team and yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is Sven Agnarsson, and I am an economist. I am associated with the firm Sjókovin in the Faroe Islands, and I have been working mainly in the legal surroundings of alternative proteins and food in general in this project, and as well as on sustainability issues and risks analysis. And I think that will be sufficient for myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Sven. Just to complete that, for those who joined us a little bit late, I'll introduce myself. I forgot to do it, I believe. My name is Marie Schrester. I'm a food scientist. I'm working in Germany at the research center TTZ, and I'm involved in the NextGenProteins project as well as responsible for everything related to stakeholder engagement. And I'm happy to be your chairperson today. So I'll give the word to the ProFuture project. Massimo, would you like to introduce your teams and yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Marie. Good morning, everyone. My name is Massimo Castellari. I am a senior researcher at Tirta in the area of food industries, and I am the scientific coordinator of the project ProFuture. With me are also Fabio Fanari, Dario Dongo, and Joao Navallo from the consortium. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Massimo. I'll then give the word to Emanuele from the Smart Protein project to please introduce yourself and your team.
Hi, Marie. My name is Emanuele Zanini. I'm a research professor at EUCC, and I'm a coordinator of the EU project Smart Protein. And I'm food microbiology and food biotechnology as a background. And here I'm gonna have my priceless project manager, Jacqueline, that basically support me in this adventure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then I'll give the word to the SUSINCHAIN project. Teun, would you like to introduce yourself and your team?
Yes, thank you, Marie. My name is Teun Veldkamp. I'm a researcher insects as food and feeds at Wageningen University and Research in the Department of Wageningen Livestock Research, and coordinating the SUSINCHAIN project together with Ine van der Vels from Wageningen Food Safety Research and Nathan Meijer, Wageningen Food Safety Research. Thank you.
Thank you, Teun. I'll give the word now to Paul from Giant Leaps project to introduce yourself and your team, please.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Vos. I'm expertise leader in nutrition, quality and health at Wageningen Food and Biobased Research, part of Wageningen Research. And I'm honored to coordinate the Giant Leaps project. Today in the meeting, also Hans Verhagen is present, who is leading on the policy area and the tasks related to that. And Ine van der Vels-Klerks also has a role as deputy coordinator in Giant Leaps, who is also present in the meeting. And other people are in the audience in relation to our project as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. And last but not least, Morena, I will give you the word to introduce yourself and your team for the Giant Leaps project.
Thank you
for
very
the
much,
Like a
Marie.
Pro project. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm representing today Like a Pro project. I'm an analytical chemist and I'm working at Cetic-Cita, and no-profit research and technology center located in La Rioja region here in Spain. And yeah, I would like to take this chance to thank you, and on behalf of all the partners of Like a Pro project, I would just like to say that we are really happy to have been invited to join this collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you, everyone. So I think we did the roundtable as a to the tab. I hope I didn't forget anyone. And now we'll go on. You saw already some of the results of the first Mentimeter question about the strategies and the EU strategy, and that's exactly the topic we're going to follow now in our agenda. So we'll start with the presentation of the different policies that or strategies that you had in the Mentimeter poll about protein strategy, farm to fork strategy, and food 2030. So, Laurent, the word is yours. Would you like to add something to what you already introduced us in the to the tab regarding the protein strategy, or do you think you already explained us the main points of the strategy? Did Laurent already had to leave us? Maybe someone, yes, I think, Melissa, would you like I think to?
He had to leave indeed for another meeting. But I think everything he said is basically what we know now. It's yeah, as he mentioned, it's foreseen for next year, beginning of next year. So we're currently working on it, and yeah, I think he said everything that we can share now.
We'll follow up that closely. Thank you, Melissa. Then I would like to give the word to Alice Pignaca from DG SANTE to tell us some words about farm to fork. I don't know, Alice, do you want to share some slides? Should I stop sharing?
Yes, I have a short presentation.
Sure.
I will share it now.
Please, you should be able to share your slides now.
Thanks. Yeah. So let me know if you see it.
Yes, we can see your slides.
Okay, yeah. Perfect. So yeah, I will just give a very brief presentation about the farm to fork strategy. Well, even if from the poll, I think is the strategy that is the most known to everyone, but just a refresher. So of course, the farm to fork strategy is at the center of the European Green Deal. So of course, the European Green Deal wants to make Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And all the sectors need to, of course, give their contribution to these objectives. So also the food system need to become more sustainable. And that's why in May 2020, the Commission has adopted the farm to fork strategy to indeed make the space, let's say, for this transition towards sustainable food system. First of all, before we can talk about the strategy, we need to see what is a sustainable food system. So in order to have a sustainable food system, we need to ensure that the environmental, economic, and social sustainability are ensured in our food system. So this means that, of course, we need to have our food system need to be within planetary boundaries, but also we need to ensure that there is competitiveness, food is affordable, and also to give a fair share of added value also to primary producers, for example, and of course also social sustainability, because in this transition towards sustainable food system, we need to ensure that no one is left behind. And also, of course, the rural and coastal areas and the farming and fishing communities need to be included into this transition. And as part of social sustainability, we also have, for example, animal welfare. So of course, so from the DG SANTE side, we have been working since we were, let's say, created on food safety. But now, since let's say our food system in Europe is probably if not the safest, one of the safest in the world with the highest standards. Now we're trying to make this further step to really dive into sustainability. And to be able to have this transition towards sustainable food system, we also, of course, need an integrated approach. And that's also where research and innovation and knowledge providers, for example, really play an important role, because we cannot achieve this transition if we don't have, for example, new tools for farmers to be able for them to be able to produce more sustainably, but also for citizens and consumers. To, for example, be more, I don't know, have better information about the food that they consume, or also, I don't know, smarter packages to reduce also food waste. So just in a nutshell, with the Farm to Fork strategy, we had an action plan with the 27 actions, and you will see here there are very different types of actions, because we have new legislative proposals, revision of current legislation, and non-legislative proposals such as the Code of Conduct or action plans. So we really try to, let's say, take an integrated approach with different actions and type of actions, because also, of course, legislation is very important, but it takes time. So we also already kick-started, let's say, a bit the transition with other non-legislative proposals. So just to give an idea of some of the initiatives that we adopted, for example, the contingency plan for ensuring food supply and food security in times of crisis. Of course, it was coming after the COVID pandemic, and of course, it has also proven very important following the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The EU Code of Conduct on Responsible Food Business and Marketing Practices. This, I think, is a very important example on how we can collaborate together with industries, NGOs, and also other stakeholders to create this momentum for the transition towards sustainable food system. And another adopted initiative is the proposal for a sustainable use of plant protection products regulation. As per the ongoing initiative, we have other initiatives such as legislation on NGTs, and then we really have some initiatives that target consumers and target also our food environment, because really the objective of the Farm to Fork strategy is to create a favorable food environment where the healthy and sustainable choice is the easier choice for consumers, and also it's for example for the food producers. So for example, we are working on a proposal for a revision of the food information to consumers. We're working on proposal legislation for EU level targets for food waste reduction. And finally, our, let's say, flagship initiative is this new framework legislation on a union sustainable food system. So of course, we don't work on alternative proteins per se. This is a DG AGRI remit, but of course, it's very important in the Farm to Fork strategy and in our ultimate goal, let's say, this idea that we also diversify proteins, and of course, we also push for a more healthier and more sustainable diets. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Alice, for these insights. I will now ask Cindy to give us some insight about the Food 2030 policy. Do you want to share some slides, Cindy?
Yes, I will try to make it work. So
we can see them as, yeah, very good. Thanks.
You can see it?
Yeah,
very good. All right. So I'm actually glad that you had a poll asking people to whether they know the protein strategy, farm to fork, and Food 2030. So I see that the number of people knowing Food 2030 is rather low, which is fine. That's why I'm going to remind again what Food 2030 is. Yep. So basically, Food 2030 is a policy framework, a research innovation policy framework that has been launched during the Milan Expo in 2015. So the objective is basically to take basically a systemic approach, food system approach. The main issue that we had with food systems until now is the fact that we work in silos, and some actors are maybe not so much taken on board. Some actors of the food system that needs to be fixed. That's why Food 2030 we tried to take on a systemic approach. So the objective is basically to structure research innovation in the EU, research innovation systems by convening different EU services, the member states, but also the stakeholders for research and innovation. The aim is, again, to connect the whole food value chains through research and innovation. So we need to take into account actors from the land and the sea, all actors within the farm to fork, let's say, system. Let's put it that way. The producers to the consumers. Really, the aim is to engage all actors. But Food 2030 also aim to scale up research and innovation. So that's why in this, let's say, initiative, you would see a lot, many aspects related to digital take-up, open innovation, investment, the question of education and skills that are indeed quite important. And so Food 2030 has 4 priorities. You see them in this slide. So that's nutrition, climate, circularity, and innovation. So in the context of Food 2030, in October 2020, we published a report on 10 pathways for actions, and you have the link in this slide. For each pathway, we try to develop a systemic approach involving all main actors, the primary producers, the food processing industries, the retailers, the food services, the food services providers, the consumers, the policymakers, researchers, and so on. And so the objective was to explain in these pathways how we can get core benefits, which means benefits in all 4 objectives. That's what you have with the pluses on in this table. An aspect that is quite important in the pathways for Food 2030 is the notion of place-based approach that are quite important to test, demonstrate, to experiment and deploy, and also to share basically knowledge and information across the actors and the system. So the pathways that you see in this slide have been developed and implemented through Horizon 2020 and the first part of Horizon Europe, so up to now. But now we started working on the second part of Horizon Europe, so from 2025 to 2027 with a new strategic plan. So these pathways needed updates, and for that we obviously need expert feedback, and that's why we organized actually a workshop earlier this month. Actually, that was not this month, it was in March this year, to basically update everything related to the pathway, and we also decided to create a new pathway on zero pollution food system. So as you can see, there is a pathway on alternative proteins and dietary shifts, and so the pathways basically explain the systemic challenges. It also explains the barriers and enablers, and it also provides elements on research and innovation needs. So based on the discussion that we had earlier this year with experts and also internal discussion with colleagues in other DGs, we came up to the conclusion that there are quite a lot of research and innovation needs that are still ongoing on alternative proteins and dietary shifts. I will give a few examples really, but stay in touch, let's say, because basically these pathways will be published again, the updates, in an event that we are planning at the end of the year in December, the Food 2030 event that will take place in Brussels. And so the update of this pathway will be published at this moment. So in terms of research and innovation needs, what do we have? One of them could be about the fact of we need to develop technologies, formulation techniques and processes to really foster acceptability, affordability, sustainability of products based on alternative proteins, but without relying too much on processing, like the over-processing of raw materials. So that would be one research innovation need. Another one is about allergenicity, studying the allergenicity and food intolerance related to several diets that include various sources of proteins in different regions, also in Europe. The question of the cocktails of food additives as well. So alternative proteins is one aspect, but of course it's a question of diets. That's why there is another pathway related to nutrition, and these two pathways will need to work closely together to develop maybe research subjects that could be a little bit broader to include various aspects. Another element would be about studying the nutritional adequacy, the question of digestibility, sensory quality of alternative proteins, taking into account also the needs of the most vulnerable groups as well, such as elderly people or kids, for example. A different research innovation need that we were thinking about could be about the media, the impact of media, including social media. It's all related to education at the end of the day. And nowadays we live in a world where media has a very important place. So we also need to study and to explore the impact that media and education have for a shift towards, for example, plant-based diet or alternative proteins-based diets. Raising awareness, access to information of food system and diets are also very important. And maybe a last point I can mention, but these are really few ideas that still needs to develop a little bit further in the coming months before the publication, would be related to the question of energy. As you know, with the issue that we had following the war in Ukraine, we had a lot of energy-related dependencies, and so it is time also for Europe to find ways to reduce this dependency, and it is also very relevant as well for food systems, but also more specifically for alternative proteins. So that's really few examples. There are many more. Even this example that I just mentioned still needs to be developed a little bit further. These are just ideas, but do stay in touch. And you will see this research innovation needs, among others, in the publication of this document at the end of the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy, for this insights in this Food 2030 strategy. We would now go on with presenting you the HORIZON4PROTEINS project. And I will start by giving the word to my colleague Sven.
Paul, thank you. Yes,
okay.
Yes, you have.
The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Can you control the slides? Yes, thank you. So thank you very much for this opportunity to give you a short overview of NextGenProteins. Let me start by acknowledging some of the team that is here with me today. I have from VTT in Finland, we have Hanna-Lena, Jaakko and Nina, and from Matis in Iceland, we have Hilde, Rosa and Laura. So I apologize for not mentioning them earlier. As you can see, NextGenProteins is drawn from several countries in Europe, and we also have Israel as a part of our project. Next slide, please. Do I have control of this? Yes. So we are facing the protein challenge, which is well known to all of us. We know that access to high quality, sustainably produced proteins is becoming increasingly restricted all over the world. We have a growing world population, increased pressure on natural resources and climate change, and the demand for protein has never been higher. The European Union is not self-sufficient when it comes to protein production, but we intend to double production by 2050. And the objectives of the NextGenProteins is to demonstrate suitability and economic viability of new proteins, microalgae, insects, single cell in an industrial environment. And these proteins would then replace or complement more traditional protein sources. And another objective, of course, is to strengthen food security, sustainability, and self-sufficiency of the EU protein production. Next slide, please. So our concept is this, that we have these three proteins. We are producing microalgae with using CO2 from geothermal power production here in Iceland to produce microalgal protein meal. We are feeding insects on pre-consumer food waste to produce insect protein meals, and we are using carbohydrates from forest biomass to produce single-cell protein meal. And what do we do with these? Well, we have several applications, both as feed and as food. Feed has been used in aquaculture for both salmon and sea bream. We have been doing trials and tests, and in poultry or chicken and turkey. And then for food, we have been producing ready meals, bakery products, imitation meat, and functional food supplements. So this has all been a part of the project to test and produce these new food types. Next slide, please. So the main result so far of the project of course is not yet finished. We have been producing about 12 tons of proteins, and we are scaling up in the SMEs. Applications in food products, like I mentioned, we have developed products. We have done tests on storage and consumers, so they are ongoing. Application in feed, broiler and turkey, salmon and sea bream. And we have also been looking at market opportunities and business potential. And we did a consumer surveys with 6,600 consumers in 6 countries in Europe. In general, people are positive and open, but they sometimes really don't know what to think about the proteins that they are being served. It's challenging to get consumers to accept protein ingredients from new things like insects, for instance, crickets. But they do accept the product, provided the taste is similar, and they can trust that they're not being misled. And price, of course, is also a very important parameter. People, yeah.
I need you to come to a conclusion of the presentation, please, to keep on time. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. No problem.
Sven, would you like to add something on the challenges?
So just challenges, just very briefly. We need to look at regulation in Europe and other countries, shorten the time for approval of novel food, possibly change the approach from bottom up to top down, support innovation projects, integrate these technical and financial assistance from existing EU instruments, and educate consumers. And I think those would be the main points from our project. But we will be discussing these challenges in more detail later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sven. I think we'll go on to the next project, which is the ProFuture project. So Massimo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So the next one, please. Yes, this one. Thank you. ProFuture involves the next one, please. This one. Thank you, Marie. ProFuture involves 31 partners from 13 countries in Europe, and the main objective of our project is to boost the innovation all along the microalgae value chain, from the microalgae biomass production up to the development of innovative food and feed products reformulated with the microalgae ingredients. We of course, we also take into account the LCA, the impact on the environmental parameters, the consumer research, market also analysis, and of course the targeted communication to the different stakeholders. The next one, please. The main outcomes of our project are the implementation of innovative, more efficient and sustainable technologies for the cultivation of the microalgae biomass and the obtention of single-cell ingredients. We have also identified new Chlorella vulgaris strain with a yellow or pale green color, which are more suitable for the for the inclusion in the food matrix, and which are already available in the market as food ingredients. We have also produced and scaled up at industrial scale 6 different types of food which have been reformulated with microalgae ingredients, and which will be also tested with consumers in 3 different countries. And finally, we also developed new feed formulations, which includes microalgae ingredients, and which will be tested in animal studies, considering the effects on the animal health and on the final meat quality. Anyway, at this stage of the project, we are also aware that the integration in the food matrix of these ingredients is still challenging because of their low solubility, and also because of their impact on the organoleptic properties of the food. And it's also challenging the extraction and the isolation of proteins, of protein extracts, due to the low yields and the high cost of this process. The next one.
And I need you to come to an end, Massimo, please.
Thank you. And well, our partners also identified some policy issues, for example, related to the organic certification of the microalgae biomass production. They highlighted that, for example, the loss of organic certification for some chlorella producers because of the use of CO2 to grow the algae in an autotrophical way. And they also pointed out that the cultivation of microalgae for the organic certification is mainly regulated following the protocol in force for agricultural crops, and this is not always reasonable from a technical point of view. Regarding the authorization as novel food, they suggested that some kind of financial aid for SME and clusters to prepare or submit the dossiers requested for the authorization of new species, and as well as also some kind of open authorization when the basic information comes from studies funded with public resources. They also highlighted that the novel food regulation gives the applicant exclusive rights during 5 years for microalgae species not consumed as food before 1997. But if microalgae could be considered plants, this would be also in contrast with the requirements on the legal protection of biotechnological invention and property rights for plant varieties. And finally, even if the animal byproduct upcycling, for example, from fisheries, it's an interesting option for microalgae cultivation. This practice in this moment is not authorized by the present legislation. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Massimo, for your introduction. I would now give the word to Smart Protein and Emanuele, please.
Thanks, Maria. Before start, I would like to say to link to what Cindy mentioned before about how important is education and consumer engagement in media, and I would like to thank to my colleagues Paloma Nosten, Matilda Alexander, and Lucia, our policy officer in ProFuture. Basically, is doing an amazing job on this specific aspect that we will see later on. So, what is Smart Project? Basically, is 32 partners involved in 20 different countries, also extra EU, because I mean the data transition is it's not just European issues, but these are global issues. We are basically focusing on plant protein, basically on lentil, chickpea, fava bean, and quinoa, and also on developing different fungal-based protein through proper upcycling of side streams, particularly from bakery industry, pasta industry, and brewery industries. You can move on. Yes, here you can see basically how heterogeneous are the partners involved, and you see basically we also have partners from Israel, Switzerland, Thailand, New Zealand, and US, just to basically show how relevant the issue is and the challenge is, not just for Europe countries but also for our countries in different continents. And here I would like to say, what we did in Smart Protein is just using the farm to fork approach. So we start from actually to see how we can produce our raw ingredients in a more sustainable and regenerative way. So we were focusing on protein crop and soil and water management to see basically how those proteins can be developed in line with with the natural resource constraints. But then after producing, with breeding, activity, we identify how we can actually extract and concentrate those proteins to deliver functional ingredients. And then we move to the food processing. So basically how to integrate those raw ingredients, materials, in particular protein isolates and protein concentrate in a complex food system. And we are targeting different food categories, starting from sauce, pasta, meat analogs, seafood analogs, cheese analogs, and follow-up infant food formula. Of course, in this specific aspect, we also look into how those proteins actually have an effect on human health. So actually they are affecting the human gut microbiome, but also how basically support people on the recovery, after intense exercise. So this is a very important part. Definitely, since it's in a research innovation action, we also focusing on exploitation and business development. Since there are so many industries involved in this project, so we support them to protect the IP, to exploit their knowledge, and to develop future business. Consumer studies is also another aspect crucial in our project. We are focusing on European citizen consumers, but also on Chinese consumers to basically help also our industry, our partners to see basically if there is a business opportunity also outside the Europe, borders. Dissemination communication, this has been specifically performed on ProVeg, and we are making sure that basically we are targeting all the relevant stakeholders in the entire food system, starting from farmers, food industries, and consumers. And of course, sustainable assessment. We need to prove with this project that basically what we are doing is much better than what basically is the regular business out there. So we are also performing life cycle assessment, life costing assessments to make sure that basically what we are doing is in advancement of what basically is companies doing at the moment. Next.
Thank you,
Yes.
and I need you to come to a conclusion, please.
Sure. Basically, here that's just the main outcome, main points. Basically, we are targeting, in particular, when we are developing different food products. So we are targeting natural aspects. So basically, simple, few ingredients, taste, clean taste as possible, so we can actually shape as we please in terms of what is the food category we are targeting. Texture is a very key aspect, in particular in some of the products like the meat and cheese analogs. Appearance, of course, they have to be engaging for consumers, willing to inspire consumers, let's say, consumption, and of course, make sure that basically those products are affordable. And definitely for there is several aspects that basically we should take in consideration when we are talking about policy. Definitely one aspect that we pointed out is engaging with a public food procurement, because that actually could be an effective tool to push and to use this, let's say, tools to improve a dietary transition, and also with much more inclusion of alternative proteins, specifically in this case of plant proteins in everyday diet.
Thank you, Emanuele.
You're welcome.
I'll give the word now to the SUSINCHAIN project, Teun. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Marie. I will introduce the SUSINCHAIN project to you. Next slide, please. It stands for Sustainable Insect Chain. This picture we included in the proposal. It's nicely illustrating the approach of the project. On the left side, you have the production side of insects. And on the right of this picture, you see the demand side, so as well feed as food. And in between, you see a gap. And with the project, we give answers to a lot of challenges which are mentioned in this gap, to fill this gap with knowledge. So it can be focusing on the substrates, on the diets for the animals, the growth performance of animals, consumer studies, and giving answers to these knowledge gaps, we developed a number of work packages. What's on the next slide? Yeah. With the aim to test, pilot, and demonstrate recently developed innovations, techniques, products, and processes, and we realize a shift up to TRL 6 to mature and commercialize the European insect value chain. And the work packages we have are focusing on business, market experiences, insect rearing, transport, processing. Different products insect products were processed here also to use in other work packages. So in the work package insects as feed, with different processing techniques, the products were tested in work package 4. Insects as food, a lot of consumer studies in different European countries with 6 different types of insect-based diets, human diets. The safety work package is covering all safety aspects in the previous work packages, and it's exactly the same for sustainability. Also covering all the innovations you create in the different work packages will also be calculated. What are the effects on sustainability? And a very important work package is also the communication work package. As we have heard before, we should pay a lot of attention to that. I also would like to make use of these few minutes to mention our final symposium. This will be on September 27. It will be organized in the Netherlands, and we have 2 sessions. During the morning, we will make the results available for the project results available for the audience. But in the afternoon, we would like to have a policy event. And I would kindly ask to the DGs and other European authorities to present their view on the development of a sustainable insect chain in Europe. So far, we were not that successful, but I really would like to encourage, and we would very much appreciate if you could present your view during this afternoon. And yeah, the program will be finalized in May and advertised in June. The program is also included in the background information, as well as a long list of key messages for the policymakers from this project. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, John. I will now give the word to Giant Leaps. Paul, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to present to you the high-level overview of the Giant Leaps project. And also Giant Leaps is very happy to join the Horizon4Proteins initiative. What I would also like to say is that the coordinators of the original 4 projects within Horizon4Proteins are also represented in our Giant Leaps consortium. So this is extending the collaboration that is already there, and I'm very happy to build on that and also to do that together with Leica Pro as a new project as well. If you could go to the next slide. So Giant Leaps is a large research and innovation action that has started in September last year with a total budget of 12 million and 35 complementary partners from knowledge institutes, small and large businesses, and network organizations. And together with these partners, what we try to achieve is to strategically address the knowledge gaps in relation to alternative proteins across the relevant domains. And I will get to those in a later slide. With the aim to address the scattered and incomplete data sets that relate to the different types of proteins and the different domains that are relevant, to work on new methodologies and improved methodologies to address crucial issues, and to deliver innovations to overcome important technological, sensory, and other limitations, to allow alternative proteins to be applied at large scale in foods, food products, and in the end, European diets. So the integrated farm-to-fork strategy is very much the center also of the Giant Leaps project, focusing then specifically on alternative proteins. And our overall goal is to enable an integrated assessment across alternative protein sources and different classes of alternative protein sources to drive innovation and in the end optimize the sustainability, safety and healthiness of future diets. And if you could go to the next slide, the way in which we try to do this is to engage with a large number of stakeholders, so to get their perspectives and to ensure together with them that we address all the relevant knowledge gaps that exist. And regarding the domains, we focus on the domains that you see in the center of this slide. So on environmental and overall sustainability related knowledge gaps in relation to greenhouse gas emissions, biodiversity, land and water use, also social and economic sustainability. We address health-related knowledge gaps on the digestibility of alternative proteins and the co-nutrients that they can deliver. So I guess the positive health contributions they can deliver, but also focusing on potential food safety aspects. For instance, in relation to toxicology and allergenicity. Allergenicity has an important focus within our project. And here we also address elements that relate to regulation, novel food regulation, and the aspects that are particularly relevant to alternative proteins. And in these three domains, we also focus a lot on method development to try to support and speed up processes to make alternative proteins available to be applied in foods and food products. On the consumer side, of course, it's important to work on solutions that consumers in the end want to consume. So it's important to do work on consumer acceptance, preferences, and cultural aspects. I think this slide somehow disappeared. Thank you. That is important. And also in relation to food technology and food processing, to work on so innovations there to allow alternative proteins to be applied really at large scale in foods and food products. All these different knowledge domains and data streams will be combined in open data sets with the aim to enable comparison and benchmarking, and then in the end selection of alternative protein sources that are available, safe, healthy, and sustainable. And with these data, and here we want to generate new data, but also gather data that has already been generated in existing projects and that is available also in scientific literature. And with this combined information, we want to define what future diets could look like that are optimized for environmental and health outcomes. And with that future perspective, we want to inform and empower policymakers, but also businesses and consumers to make the transition a reality. And if you could go to the next slide, this is my final slide. So still on very high level, we want to focus on alternative proteins. We focus on 9 alternative proteins in particular across different categories, and to work on this integrated framework to evaluate protein sources. Focus on innovative prototypes, as I mentioned already, to unlock the potential of alternative proteins for applications in food and food products. To improve and generate new predictive methodologies in relation to safety and health parameters, to create these data sets and an open cloud platform for data integration that allows also analysis and comparison, and to generate models, so to estimate these future impacts of future diets in different regions of Europe, so to really be representative of the different regions and cultural aspects, to estimate future impacts. And within our project, supporting and guiding policymakers is a really important goal as well. So we aim to successfully guide integrated and sectoral policies to enable the transition to a healthy and sustainable food system. And we specifically aim to develop a number of policy briefs covering different areas, and particularly on integrated food policy, on public health and consumer education, food safety, including allergenicity, which is very important, agriculture and aquaculture sectoral policies, as well as environmental policy and circularity. So again, as a very top level, this is what we aim to do in the Giant Leaps project. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I'll now give the word to the Like-a-Pro project. Morena, the floor is yours.
Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so thank you again for this opportunity. Today, as I mentioned before, I'm representing Like-a-Pro project that started in November last year, and main goal of this project is, as written here, to mainstream alternative protein, making them more accessible, available, and acceptable to everybody and everywhere. We are a consortium of 42 entities, 42 partners from 17 countries, coordinated by SETIC-SITA. And with this big consortium, we ensure that full coverage of the entire alternative protein value chain. For example, we have ingredients and food products producers, food clusters. We have experts in exploitation, dissemination, and communication. We have also industry and civil society representatives, scientists, etc. So this will be possible through the achievement of the objectives mentioned here. So we already started understanding which are the main determinants influencing the consumer behavior, and also understanding which are the necessary food ecosystem governance frameworks that enable a higher uptake of alternative protein products. We also diversify the alternative protein supply by developing 16 new alternative protein products from 7 novel and improved protein sources like krill, mushroom, fungi, or just to mention a few. In parallel, we will explore the most effective solution to promote the consumption of alternative proteins, and this solution will be co-designed together with citizens. And we will also involve, of course, food system actors to make the alternative products an easy and economically viable choice. And last but not least, we also make sure that all the results generated during the project will bring positive changes and impact in terms of health and sustainability of the European food system. Next slide, please. Okay, as for the policy implication, I could mention that Like-a-Pro will contribute, of course, to all the aims of the Farm to Fork strategy, like neutral positive environmental impact, food security, affordability of food, and of course, other European and international policy commitments that are briefly mentioned in this slide. Next, please. We will also keep an eye on future EU legislations, like the future European protein strategy and the upcoming framework for sustainable food system that will be presented by the European Commission by the end of this year. Next, please. Okay, during the project, the consortium will produce 4 policy briefs that will be distributed to EU representatives, and those briefs will cover different aspects that are listed here, like understanding, improving, and empowering consumers, diversification and development of alternative protein products, food system actor mobilization, and as I cannot forget, the impact and regulatory assessment. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Morena, for this introduction. We now completed the presentation of our the HORIZON4PROTEINS project, and I would directly give the word to Jacqueline Lyons from Smart Protein Project to chair the first plenary discussion about the topic protein diversification. So, Jacqueline, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Marie. How much time have we for the session? Is it shrinking a bit?
Yeah, we are running a bit late, so if we can maybe keep it to up to 35 minutes, I would think it's very, very good. Thanks, Jacqueline.
Okay, you can let us know maybe when we're there. So hi everybody, I'm project manager on Smart Protein. So I'm going to just chair this first session on protein diversification. I have some questions, but hopefully we'll have other questions maybe from the group who are here. And I think the listeners can submit questions as well, I believe, through the chat or the Mentimeter. So potentially those can be asked as well in a while. So when I was thinking about protein diversification, you know, in the sense of moving from animal proteins a little bit more towards plant and alternative proteins. And when I was thinking of questions that might be interesting to discuss, I thought about this from the context of the different stakeholders that it's relevant to. So first of all, thinking about consumers or thinking about us all as the general public, we can see from smart protein research and other research as well that consumers are naturally diversifying their protein sources. So they're more consumers are identifying as flexitarian, for example. So lots of people are transitioning anyway, I suppose, a little bit more towards plant and alternative proteins. So the question I had was, should we further encourage consumers to diversify their protein sources? Is that even an appropriate thing to do? And if so, who would be the appropriate bodies to deliver this type of public health messaging? So that question, I thought maybe Alice from the SANTE department might have an opinion there to begin.
Sorry. Yes. That's a very interesting question indeed. I mean, for example, in the context of the work that we do on the framework or the proposal for the new framework legislation, we're also considering some governance aspects. So this would also include, for example, talking with member states and also encouraging them to maybe develop national food strategies. So because also we see, of course, some member states are also developing new food strategies. There's also dietary guidelines, but not all the time. I mean, some national guidelines are maybe outdated. They don't always take into account also the environmental impact of diets. So of course, that's very important, and also national bodies are included, and they also develop these new guidelines, taking into account all the aspects of sustainability, and also, yeah, to give also an alternative to maybe animal proteins, for example, because now, as you said, a lot of people are changing their diets, so but maybe they don't have a guideline on what maybe it's better to eat, or the portions, for example. So that's also what we try to do, of course, with member states. The Commission, of course, cannot impose anything. That's what, of course, we will try to coordinate with member states. And then, of course, I mean, education to consumers is key. So that's why also we work on a proposal for a front of pack. But of course, it needs to come also more at a local level, probably. And for example, also education in school is very important. But then again, this is again for member states also to implement it.
Okay, thanks very much for your input there. There's some hands up, which is great. So the first hand up, I can't see the full name.
It's Arlen.
Yeah.
It's Arlen. Yes, hi. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Arlen Jalili from the Collaborating Center on Sustainable Consumption and Production, and I'm here together with Morena with the LipoPro project. Our role is quite focused on consumer engagement and empowerment. And I want to come in with the first question here, and I think the answer for the first part, I guess, would be an easy yes. Otherwise, we would not be generally here gathered in order to have this plenarium. And when it comes to diversification, I think we can speak about short-term changes. For example, just to further get people to try and entice their curiosity to alternative proteins, but also later on see how to create a shift in dietary patterns so the alternative proteins can become potentially the default option within the consumer choice. And I think this was already mentioned, but ideally there is this holistic and systemic approach to, on the one hand, provide information to consumers. However, quite important, and potentially also to mention that beyond information itself, we would potentially see how to guide their behaviors towards more sustainable and healthy dietary patterns, and see how alternative proteins could become the enabler of those. So basically, whether we could do this with behavioral interventions, nudging, etc. And to further specify in terms of the actors, I think since consumers make most of their food choices in food environments, I would see the food industry as one of the primary actors that are well positioned to sort of provide such information to consumers or to guide their behaviors. And of course, in here we have supermarkets, retailers, restaurants, food markets, and all the other points where consumers could make such choices. We also have the food manufacturers who are also well positioned to provide such information to consumers, either through their own marketing strategies, but also in collaboration with retailers. There are the cooks, catering services, etc. So a lot of different actors. But then also important, I would say that we have the civil society organizations. We have then we have the research plus media was also mentioned, quite important to sort of provide such information, and then the policy reinforcing everything, regulation, and with various policies. I would just highlight that also the various forms of providing such information or strategies to sort of engage with consumers can be important. Again, information is quite a good one, and education. However, we have seen that information does not always lead to actual action or to actual consumption patterns. So we might want to explore other opportunities such as nudging, different interventions in the food environment, or also just to see if we can experiment also with a bit more bolder options, such as taking out certain unsustainable options as being available or accessible to consumers and make the one that are more sustainable the default one. So all in all, like a combination of various factors, various actors that would intervene and also guide consumers' choices towards the more sustainable one.
Okay, thanks very much. That was a great response. Emanuele, have you a comment as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think one of the main actors it should be engage our politicians, because most of the time, what I can see from Italy, if you are prone to have
Is the connection gone for other people?
definitely right wing. So definitely, sorry. Okay.
I think we just lost you there for a second, unless that's on my side. Can other people hear?
Okay.
Okay, back again.
Can you hear me? I will be very quick. Okay. As I said, one of the main actors I think could actually play a role in this dietary transition are our politicians. Definitely what I can see in Italy, if you are, more prone on dietary transition, so on testing, on experimenting new alternative proteins, you are definitely from the left wings. And if you're a more meat lover or cheese lover, definitely you are more traditional. Definitely you're more on the right wing. So definitely this is not something that basically dietary transition should not have any let's say party label. Everybody has to be support this transition, regardless what you think from a political perspective. But sometimes this is a hot topic for politicians because they're much more looking on a short-term view. And this dietary transition is something that is going to happen, is going to produce their effect in the long term. So that's my.
Thanks for that. That's interesting. I'd never thought about the politicians as an actor in that. Cindy, you had a comment too?
Yeah, just to quickly react on this point, I think there is one element that will always exist, unfortunately, I would say, but we need to tackle, and that's the reason why I think we need to continue encouraging consumer, or at least keep working on this even further, is the question of miscommunication. There is and where there will always be miscommunication. So I think this is really, from a research innovation point of view, it's key that we continue working on it to provide to the consumers information, up-to-date information about this or that diet. They make their own choice, but at least it's really based on scientifically robust and up-to-date information. So that's why I think we do. I really think that we need to continue working on this point. Then there is another thing that I wanted to mention. It's actually related to quite a lot of questions that I hear related to this point on diversification. The question is diversification, all right, but towards which kind of diets? For example, the question that I always have is, should we continue, for example, why should we invest in research and innovation, for example, on protein sources on new protein sources? We already have quite a lot of like diverse choices of protein sources. Why should we look at new ones. So, for example, alternative proteins is a quite broad subject. So, for example, we could think about cultured meat. But we could also think about insects, for example. And I do receive quite a lot of questions related to that. Should we not instead focus on what we already have and what we already know? So, for example, plant-based proteins instead of developing new types of proteins. So, my reply to this kind of question usually is that from a research and innovation point of view, we should indeed continue developing sources of proteins that we already know, alternative sources of protein that we already know, such as plant-based, and especially because actually we need to ensure sustainability in any case. But from a research innovation point of view, it is quite relevant to also look at new elements. But I would like to hear your expert point of view on this question. I know it's a bit provocative, but yeah.
Do others have a comment on that? Because I get that comment as well from people as well. Sometimes people feel, you know, if you're going plant-based, there's plenty there already. And are you looking at ultra-processed foods? And it can be a bit controversial sometimes for some people in their mind, I think. There's two hands up. So Emanuele and then Paul.
Yeah, just a quick answer to Cindy. Definitely, the reason why we should look behind, you know, what those are, the proteins that we are familiar with, is because we need to develop a resilient food system. Resilient food system means also having different options available on the table, ready to be uptaken. Because, you know, we see with environmental change what's happened, and if you have a 6 months of drought, and potentially you're going to compromise the harvest of different legumes, for example. So definitely you need to diversify and see basically which is the plan B and plan C that basically can work in our food system.
Yeah, that's a good point. Paul?
Yeah, I would like to expand on what Emanuele said. I fully agree that we need to look at novel types of proteins and new innovations there, and really also then compare that to existing protein sources. And at least that's also what we try to achieve within Giant Leaps. So not to favor new ones or existing ones, but to try to have an objective assessment of the potential of the different protein sources, and also then take into account, for instance, consumer perceptions on what they are willing to accept. And I guess there also we will be limited in how we can predict that in the long term. But I think that should be an ongoing process to see what are the opportunities for innovation, and also take into account all the different perspectives that are relevant, including the consumer aspects.
Yeah, it's a good point. So looking at them in the context of what's there existing as well. Dario?
Oh, yes, please. I'd like to highlight that the real hurdle for business operators right now is how to reach the market when there is such a hurdle in novel food authorization procedures. The novel food authorization procedures means that at least food business operators needs to invest from 500,000 euros to 1.3 million euros. And there is another aspect which is also quite tricky. That is the chance for everyone, even within European research funded projects, to obtain an exclusive on novel food authorization based on the even the most common scientific review, so that the rest of the world will be halted in using that novel food, despite it is a natural ingredient like monk fruit, for example, for the next 5 years. And this has to be considered carefully while revising the novel food regulation, because since the beginning, I remember in the first novel food regulation, 258/997, was dramatically hard to be followed, so that
the few novel foods that have been authorized in nearly 20 years were just phytosterols used in a number of food products. Whereas now we have a regulation that is well working, it is providing us a safe environment. Consumers are confident, health authorities are confident about its implementation, but at the practical level of food business operators, rather than farmers or importers wishing to bring novel new products or traditional products from third countries into the EU, and these can be useful and precious novel sources of proteins, then there is a hurdle. There is a hurdle, and there is a trademark or a patent-like system, which is not consistent with the intellectual property international regulation, and this has to be fixed by the European Commission. Thank you.
I wonder, would
Sorry, Jacqueline, may I just break in? We are running a little bit late with the program, so I think that we will finish this session at 11:40. So that's 10 minutes from now.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Thanks.
I'll let you know when there are 5 minutes left.
Oh yeah, fine. Okay, grand. So we'll keep going. Okay. So like Dario, your point there, I wonder, is there a comment maybe from somebody from EFSA about that? Because that's a query we also had in developing the policy brief, is about the 5-year exclusivity on novel food authorizations for the applicant, or whether that would be revised maybe because it's potentially a bit of a barrier to research and innovation. So I don't know if the EFSA people have a comment or.
Sorry, what is exactly the question? Sorry.
So Dario was mentioning about in the novel food regulation, how the applicant of a novel protein has exclusivity in some circumstances for 5 years, and then this can be a barrier to other people developing, new products as well.
Yes. Yeah, yes. Thank you for clarifying. So indeed, the novel food regulation, the new one, foresees this 5 years exclusivity in the market, because but after these 5 years, the authorization is like generic, because from one side we have to, in the Europe, you have to maintain to ensure the safety of all the consumers and citizens, but from the other side, it was like a measure to promote also innovation, to, let's say, to help those who invest on doing the experiments and providing the data for the assessment. But during these 5 years, if another applicants want to submit an application on the same novel food, then it's not a problem to do it and get another authorization. But after these 5 years, everybody who meets the specification limits can put a product in the European market.
Okay, perfect. I might move on to my next question on protein diversification, which was thinking about farmers. So I'm based in Ireland, and it's a rural area, so there's loads of farmers here, and they're all meat and dairy based. So just thinking about pockets of the EU, like where I am, I think it would be, a new concept for a lot of the farmers locally and in certain parts of Europe, I suppose, to think about diversifying their own business to move towards plant proteins. I'm just wondering, what are the plans, or what can policy do here to encourage this? Will it be incentivized potentially, or is it just certain types of farmers or large farmers that would even be envisaged as taking part in that type of protein diversification? So maybe this is the question for the Agri people. I think we've Amalia here and maybe Paolo as well. So if either of you want to comment. Maybe not. Is there anyone from DG Agri? I think Laurent was going. Oh, okay. So Alice may comment there. Thanks.
Yes, maybe I come from the DG SANTE perspective, but of course also how we can incentivize farmers. I mean, DG AGRI can of course talk about the CAP, how the CAP can work. But for example, if we also foster collaboration with the farmers and food producers, for example, food manufacturers. So of course there are plant-based manufacturers that pay a premium price, for example, for soy for human consumption. So of course also we can work into raising awareness to farmers about that, and about that actually they can maybe, let's say, okay, say that they produce soy for animal consumption. If they pass to human consumption, they can get more money for that, for example. Or also they can even be incentivized to switch from farm animal based and to soy for human consumption, or proteins for human consumption. So I think also here the collaboration between the actors of food system is key to achieve that.
Okay, thank you. And a comment as well from Manon.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Manon, and I work for Safe Food Advocacy Europe, a partner of the LICOPRO project. Well, I also think, in addition to what Alice just mentioned, while there's, well, definitely the EU can play a role through its CAP, Farm to Fork strategy, and all the other policy instruments that were presented earlier. There's definitely a need for financial support to encourage farmers in this sustainable transition, so that they can buy new equipment, invest in infrastructure, but also to cover possibly the lost income from animal farming. There also needs to be support in finding new markets for their production. And last but not least, there's definitely a need for more capacity building and training on how to do this transition, to which protein production to turn to, which growing techniques to adopt. We can mention regenerative agriculture or permaculture. And I think in this sense, for example, Erasmus Plus projects are quite relevant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I've just a tiny bit of time left, but I might move to the last question, which was looking at protein diversification from the point of view of industry. So on Smart Protein, for example, we have excellent industry partners, and they're there to develop plant and alternative protein-based products. So I'm just wondering, from a policy and regulatory point of view, do you believe that in time there's going to be a need for some kind of regulation there to ensure that alternative protein products are nutritious and sustainably produced as standard? So at the moment, I suppose there isn't anything official enough within the labelling legislation to I suppose you can have a product, a plant or an alternative based food product that is nutritious, that is sustainably produced, but you can have one equally that isn't. And there isn't enough embedded at the moment in the food labelling legislation, I suppose, to make that clear to consumers, who may assume that because it's plant or alternative protein based, that it is good for them and it is good for the planet. So I'm just wondering, going forward, is that likely to become more embedded within legislation? I'm not sure who's the best to answer that question.
Just to break in, we have 5 more minutes now.
Okay. Ina?
Yeah, my name is Ine van der Veld from Wageningen, but maybe just a comment that pops up when you pose this question is, what about the traditional animal proteins? Because there is no regulation for their sustainable production. So why should we consider this for alternative proteins? And if we do, then it should be considered for all food products, isn't it?
I think it's just because consumers can believe that if it's a vegan product, for example, a vegan diet might be arguably better for health and for the planet. And then I think they see a product and assume the same. But that's a good point. Yeah, if those standards aren't there for animal proteins, then why maybe should they exist separately for plant proteins? Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think we should not diverse in the protein sources from that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other views on that one? Okay, I'm afraid to look in the chat. I know there was lots of comments, but I don't think I'll start any more questions. Have you a point, Emanuele, there?
Yes, just one remark. Definitely, if we are claiming that these alternative protein sources are better for our environment, so we need to prove it. You know, the fact that basically animal protein, you know, doesn't need to prove it. But we need to prove that basically we are doing something better, not for the environment, for the society. So that's why potentially, you know, we need to put in place a clear system that basically could provide an additional value to consumer to decide now in an educated way, which is the best for them and for the planet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so in Giant Leaps, we do a comparison of a sustainability analysis of some of the alternative proteins as compared to traditional animal proteins. So to be able to inform the consumer with scientific evidence. But we also need to realize that some of the alternative proteins, they may not be more sustainable because of efficiency of production, for instance. So, but then at least we can inform the consumer based on science and give true answers, so to say.
Yeah, definitely say that is a plant-based, it's much more sustainable. Doesn't make any sense because if some of the ingredients come from a different continent, then off you go. You know, that basically the sustainability concept fall down. So definitely has to be shape, but also communicate to consumers in a way that basically can make a wise decision in their food choice.
We might have time for just 2 short comments from the last 2 hands up. So Miroslava.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am representing Møreforsking from Norway, and we are a member of the Like-a-Pro consortium. I have put one of the questions that were on the slide in the chat because I think that I'm a biotechnologist with food biotechnologist, and from our experience, often the issue is that depending on what the alternative protein source is grown or derived, the sustainability and the nutritional qualities can vary largely. So there is an issue with giving proper advice to the consumer, I would consider. So if there is like a repository that can be advised to people to see, a common one where all the information or a lot of information that is scientifically sound is available on that, we can probably use it as a reference to advise people.
Okay, thank you, Miroslava. And might have to end on this comment, I would imagine. So Einho.
Hi, good morning. I'm representing Geiger, a partner in Like-a-Pro project. And I will like to mention that key action areas should be focused on shaping consumer awareness and demand for healthy and sustainable food options through effective labeling, providing information about food products to consumer in accessible and clear way, keeping in mind the traceability and labeling of the products, because I think it's very important also here to emphasize the allergenicity assessment of these new novel alternative proteins. So I think it's very important to standardize and harmonize the in vitro and in vivo models just to perform these protein safety and allergenicity assessments. So just to mention it. Thank you
very much. Thanks for your input, and thanks everyone for a big discussion there. I'm sure there's loads more to be said, but we better end on time to allow the other discussions.
Yes, thank you so much, Jackie. That was wonderful. Now we take a short break, 5 minutes for coffee, and then we will be back in 5 minutes sharp at 11:48. Thank you. Everyone, welcome back. Mary, do you want to take over?
Sure. So welcome back, everyone. We'll go on with the next plenary discussion on the topic policy support, and I'll give the word to Ine from the SUSINCHAIN project to chair the session. So Ine, the floor is yours, and Sven will keep an eye on time. We'll keep the session to 30-35 minutes. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Ine van der Vels-Klerks. I work in Wageningen at the Wageningen Food Safety Research and also part-time at Wageningen University. I'm Deputy Coordinator of the SUSINCHAIN project, as well as Deputy Coordinator of Giant Leaps project. And I will chair this session on policy support. We have 3 questions, which you can see here on the slide. And the first one that we want to discuss is what do policymakers need in terms of the research, in terms of data and methods that can support policy making in Europe, so that we can make the transition towards more sustainable alternative proteins, both from the production and the consumption side. It is often mentioned and said there's a lack of LCA data, for instance, but also I experience there's much more data lacking when it comes to life cycle costing or the social sustainability pillar. So yeah, what kind of data would be most useful? What should be the priorities for the research? And it's a question actually, yeah, for all DG people here represented, I think. I see one hand raised, but I'm not sure if it's an old hand or a new hand.
Hi, I think it's an old one. Yes, it's from the previous section.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe DG SANTE, maybe Alice can comment on this, or others.
Yes, I mean, of course, I will speak more about maybe consumption. So also in the framework legislation that we're working on, we are considering having setting the basis for a sustainability labeling. So of course, this is very important also to give information to consumers about sustainability as a whole of the food. So of course, I mean, this is gonna be only the basis for the sustainability labeling. We will not have the methodology, for example, already there. But of course, having a methodology that is applicable to all kinds of food is very, very important, because of course, a lot of food producers are also complain, let's say, also about the different data, the different methods that they are used. So we need, of course, a methodology that is easily applicable to all types of food, both maybe animal products, but also proteins, and also that take into account really all the aspects of sustainability. So not only environmental impact, but also we consider also social impact and economic impact. So of course, it's very difficult, of course, to have this integrated data, but that's what, for example, we're aiming to have.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's very clear. Melissa?
Yes, thank you, Inge. Yes, I just wanted to say that I completely agree with Alicia on this. For our project with DG AGRI, we are very much looking into the different types of alternative proteins and their impact. And it can be very difficult when different studies and research when they are applying different ways of looking at the impact. So indeed, there should be a harmonized way of looking into these life cycle assessments, for example, so that we can actually compare the different types of alternative proteins to see which ones actually have maybe less impact in terms of sustainability. So this can definitely be a challenge if we find research, but we cannot compare the different types of research because they all have a different approach.
Yes, yeah. So personally, I would fully agree. There is what we see from our own research. There is a lack of a standardized approach, so to say. Also, how you define the boundaries of if you're going to look at supply chains, for instance. So what would be needed in the end, but can take some time to get there, is a kind of like ISO or any other approved way of doing sustainability analysis, both for the traditional protein sources as for the alternative protein sources, I would say. Which not only focusing on the environmental impact, but also the social and the economic pillars of the sustainability domain. Okay, let's commence to write questions in the chat. Is there anyone, Dario, you want to comment on this?
Yes, please. About the policy instruments to be applied to increase sustainable production and consumption of alternative proteins. I would like to remind to all of us that the Farm to Fork strategy provided an objective to increase the agriculture, the organic agriculture up to 25% of the total cultivated area in Europe. And this, even from the consumer's perspective, has a mean and has a real value in terms of trust, because nowadays alternative protein-based foods, as I recently seen at the Tutto Food International Food Expo in Milan, are emerging. Whichever food business, food industry is launching new products, and yet there is a clear distinction between the organic ones and the rest of the world. As we ought to promote the sustainable agri-food systems, a privilege ought to be given to organic production. Thanks.
Yes, thank you for commenting. You were actually pointing to the third question on the slide, the discussion point. So what kind of policy instrument could be applied to increase sustainable production and consumption of the alternative proteins here? So we might continue on that one now. What I noticed in the presentation, the Food 2030 presentation, for instance, it often is mentioned from policy side, the regulation as the instrument. Of course, we can think about many other management strategies to change consumer behavior, to change production, etc. So we would like to discuss what kind of policy instrument could be applied to increase the overall consumption of alternative proteins, assuming that production then would follow. And I see Alice, there you have your hand raised. You want to comment on this?
Yes, I mean, of course, we can have legislation, of course, but also a very important policy instrument is public procurement. So, for example, we see in Denmark, if we talk about organic production, thanks to their public procurement, they really boosted their organic production, and now I think around 90% of produce in their public canteen is organic. So, of course, we can use, for example, these as well to boost the uptake of alternative proteins.
And how did that exactly work? Sorry, I interrupt you. How did that exactly work?
Yeah, I don't know the exactly, but of course the issue is that there are tenders, there are public procurement guidelines. So of course it needs to be tailored also for having the uptake of organic or proteins, because of course normally public procurement is about, well, maybe the best value for money. So of course maybe some farmers, they cannot access public procurement because they're too small producers. But of course we can also I think also in Denmark there was an examples of farmers coming together to be a bigger, let's say, cooperative and be more having best prices as well, and a better offer for public procurement. So we're also working on this, on sustainable public procurement, to have guidelines, and also to see also how to help the uptake of sustainable produce in public procurement, in canteens, and etc. So I think this is a very important tool, policy instrument that can be used for the uptake of alternative proteins.
Yeah, thank you. Manon?
Yes, thank you, Ine. Well, in addition, of course, to regulations, which we know are on the way, I think we should also mention funding, but following an integrated approach. So funding should be made available through various EU programs to benefit all levels of society. So we can mention, of course, the Horizon, but also Erasmus Plus for educating farmers, the LIFE program, the European Regional Development Funding, or the ESF also for social inclusion. In addition, another instrument could be some economic incentives for consumers to be able to afford alternative protein products. For example, lower VAT on alternative proteins or increasing taxes on junk food, distributing vouchers, etc. And last but not least, also, as was mentioned earlier, there should also be clear information to consumers through a labeling system that would inform them on the nutritious side, but also on the sustainability aspects of those projects. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for elaborating on the other options for the other possible policy instruments. Emmanuel?
Yeah, just a brief comment on this sustainable food procurement. Definitely, when we talk about sustainability, we will talk about economic and social sustainability. So one of the aspects from public procurement is also should be sourcing those food from sector or company that basically apply fair payment to their employees. And also there is not produced locally. So this is actually, is a more holistic concept rather than just, a plant protein or alternative proteins. So having an approach that basically take in consideration also a fair payment to the people on the food sector.
Yeah, I think a fair payment is very important, and on the other hand, also affordability of products for the consumers, I would say, because what I notice also is often the products are much more expensive than traditional products, food products, and well, I think still a lot of consumers look at the prices when they are in the food environment and have to make choices. So how can we?
That's true, Ine. But also
how can we reduce the price of the alternative proteins to make it also the easy choice, the affordable choice, so to say?
Yeah, but also you have to consider basically we are eating too much compared to what we need. So potentially it's not the matter, it's also a matter of price, also it's a matter of to reduce our daily intake.
Yeah, exactly. You can save some money with reducing your intake.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it'd be an effective way to reduce obesity and overweight.
Yeah, and a lot of problems will be solved. Let's see, on the other hand here, I cannot see the first name. Maybe you can speak out.
Hello?
Yeah, hello, yes, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm João Navalho from the company Necton and all microalgae. We are producers of algae. And we, of course, are working on these alternative protein issues. And I think we are now tackling the right point. What is hurdling these alternative proteins to come to the market? In fact, of course, that the market is taken. It is a commodity market. And I can see we to be able to compete with soy in the early times. How can we compete with protein that we can buy at half an euro per kilogram? Our prices are very, very high. Of course, this is we are talking about new technologies. We are talking about the small scale facilities, and the production costs are huge, and we cannot compete with farms of 10,000 hectares in Brazil. We cannot compete with that. So we need that the policy start to tackle the real issue. And the real issue is the market, is the price of the goods. People are not used to spend money on food. People are used to have cheap food to eat. Food is subsidized a lot, eventually too much. and also how can these new technologies can compete with old technologies that are already established and that are subsidized by the European Union. How can we convince a farmer to stop producing milk if the milk is already sold and being subsidized? It will be very hard to move this without a proper policy, without the industries to start paying what we call now the natural capital. You know, that we are just destroying the environment just to have cheap food, and for people to spend the money on iPhones, on clothes, on party, on whatever they spend the money, but nobody wants to spend money in food. Food is it's a real problem. It is eventually we are putting all the effort on research, on technology, and we are not tackling the market. Remember that very big, huge companies are in this market, and of course they don't want this to change. They will want the business as usual, and they will put hurdles on the development of a market for these alternative proteins. So here we need the help from the politics, and that's all for now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think you really point at the right, the hot potato, as we say in the Netherlands, and that is that the external analyses are not taken into account in the food prices. So food that is produced with a high impact on the biodiversity or greenhouse gas emission, etc., it's not covered in the price of the food. And that's what you also point at. So then it's not easy to compete with each other. And also the prices are then not really fair, so to say.
Yeah, so, the prices are not fair.
Exactly. Is there someone else who wants to comment on this? I see a lot of reactions in the chat. And it's more on the economics and the subsidies indeed. Emmanuel?
Sorry if I step in again, you know, but this is a very interesting topic. Definitely the idea with this huge price gap, the only things I think I can think is to re-educate citizens, because that's the key. I think, you know, doesn't matter how policy will push with tax exemptions or subsidizing whatever, but we need to make sure that basically we are not providing bad option towards a good option. We are providing a different options with different benefits, and then we need to provide a clear, simple information to citizens, because so not I don't like to call them consumers, but citizens, because they actually have an active role also in shaping our food system. So I think the engagement of citizens, and in particular on the food choices, is the key aspect. Clear information, engaging them to understand basically where their food comes from, and that also pointed out that their daily decision on the grocery has an impact on the entire food system.
Yeah, so that's the approach from the other side, from the citizen point of view, indeed. And of course, they should be all go together and should be applied at the same time, I think, to reach the highest impact. Lucia, you want to comment on that?
Yes, hello, this is Lucia, Policy Manager from ProVec. Just building on this conversation, I think it's important to really have policy coherence, right? Because if we're talking about funding schemes, and we are talking about promotion, but also about labeling, sustainable labeling was mentioned, or public procurement, all these sort of files and policy portfolios need to be aligned with each other, because we cannot talk about sustainable labeling if in our public procurement tools we are not procuring sustainably, right? And it's the same for alternative proteins if we are not putting the funding, to promote them. So I think that is a very important role for the legislator to really coordinate with each other and put forward policies that have an holistic approach to food systems, which again is something very easy to say, and I know that is a very, very complex, and we need to take on board all the stakeholders, so that is from farm to fork, as it says in the strategy. But I think this is really the challenge as well, also for people that we work on policy to establish all those links, not leaving anyone behind, and also facilitating this transition for consumers that are also not having the tools to understand all this complexity.
Yeah, thank you. So, Lucia, you point to the second discussion point here on the slide, how to integrate the different domains in the policy areas. So, can you elaborate a bit on that? How is it going in practice?
There is a question for me?
Yes. Is there in practice, is there in Brussels, so to say, the DJs are coming together and discussing these?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that would be a question more for the DGs that are in the call, but I think there is an attempt, particularly with the farm to fork and also with the sustainable food systems framework. There is this idea again of having this horizontal law that will tackle all the concerns and problems we are having within the food systems. But again, I can see Alice has already her hand raised.
Alice is already here to comment upon that.
Yes,
please go
indeed.
ahead.
Yes, so as you said, really with the farm to fork strategy, we take an integrated food system approach. All the actions also are not only in the remit of DG SANTE, but also of other DGs. So of course, it's because, I mean, as our DG, we cannot have an impact, for example, food production. And also for the framework on sustainable food system, we are working, I mean, it's a joint, let's say, effort with other DGs. So there are other co-lead DGs that are DG AGRI, DG MAR, and DG Environment. This is really because, I mean, we look at the food system in its entirety and all the issues of the food system, which of course cannot, I mean, from our perspective, we cannot really address them all. And this framework, we really try also to bring policy coherence. So also give definitions and objectives. So for example, what is a sustainable food system? What means a sustainable diet maybe as well? I mean, we're still working on which definitions will be put in the legislation, the objectives that a sustainable food system need to achieve, and also some principles. For example, also this One Health principle, which is very important as well. Like, so also to take into account and to consider that the food that we eat has an impact both on the environment, but also now on our health, for example. So this is really what we're trying to achieve.
Okay, yes, very good to hear. And also then the different policy instruments are aligned and discussed. So like regulation, funding, education, etc.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else who wants to comment on these discussion points? Yeah, if not, then I give the word back to you, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much. Mary, do you want to take over now?
Sven, yeah. Sorry.
Sure. Thanks, Ine, for chairing this nice question session about policy support. And thanks everyone for contributing with your comments and questions. We'll now move on to the last topic on our agenda for today in terms of plenary discussion about economic developments. And I will give the word to Fabio from the ProFuture project to chair that session. Fabio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marie. Good morning, everyone. As Marie already said, I'm Fabio, the project manager of ProFuture. And first of all, I would like to thank all the people involved till now in this discussion, because I think we are attending a very interesting and fruitful discussion. So in this first session, we will have the opportunity to analyze the policy challenges concerning the economic development in the innovative protein source field. And I would like to start the discussion by talking about small and medium enterprises. And for this, I would like to involve DG AGRI, to answer my question. I don't know if someone from DG AGRI is here. Maybe Dr. Jonas Lazaro Mojica. So my question is, talking about small and medium enterprises, their limited investment power and high level of risk represented by the consumer acceptance represent, of course, a big obstacle in the process of scaling up and commercialization of innovative protein-rich ingredients and foods. So what do you think would be the best approach to follow for this company, and what the institution can do or already do to support and encourage this process of scaling up?
Yeah, well, I don't represent DG AGRI, I represent DG GROW, just for clarification. But it's true that we are highly involved.
Yeah, my mistake. I want to say DG GROW and I get confused, sorry.
Yeah, well, I have to say that I don't have the answer to this question particularly, but I think it's good for the reflection on how to do this. It's true that in DG GROW we have different instruments. Some of them are involved in the single market projects. We have some tools, like for example, the European Cluster Collaborative Platform, which actually they gather clusters where SMEs are involved. And there you have some tools to actually get to SMEs. But this setting of clusters is for all the sectors, and in the food sector, sometimes you have some missing. Still, you have some of the better outreach to SMEs that you can get. Perhaps it is important to note that 99% of the companies in the sector are SMEs, so it's almost barely impossible to get to all of them. But at the same time, I would like to highlight that the protein transition is also a business opportunity for many companies, and even including SMEs. And that's where we can get them support. Sometimes it can be financial, but I quite like, for example, in one of the projects that they already mentioned that they gave support on the preparation for novel food applications, for example. And that's quite a hurdle for SMEs, particularly to get on the boundaries for that. So I think in all these, in DG GROW, we have some tools for SMEs. We have also the code of conduct that the SANTE developed also with the stakeholders. That's worth mentioning. And we in DG GROW, we are also developing transition pathways, which actually is a policy section of DG GROW working with ecosystems, and particularly how to fasten up the sustainable transition and the digital transition. And there is work ongoing, so I cannot disclose much on that, but particularly we are discussing things like how to provide investment to companies, how to boost SME competitiveness, and this is linked somehow obviously to this pathway. I also will give the word perhaps to Blaga, who is my colleague, and perhaps can complement my words if you don't mind.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for the interesting discussion. And while I raised my hand, I think Jonas already mentioned some relevant elements, but just to follow up. So in DG GROW, indeed, we have different instruments for SME support and exchange of information between SMEs and advisory services for SMEs. So we have, of course, the Enterprise Europe network of different institutions, including innovation centers or chambers of commerce that provide specific advice for SMEs. And there is a subgroup there which is focused on agri-food. And we have been raising awareness of the sustainability element by providing information on farm to fork and different initiatives under farm to fork, the code of conduct for sustainable food business and marketing practices. And these are also the people who provide advice on raising investment and investment opportunities, be it in the public sector, from EU funding, from member states funding, but also private funding. So I think that this discussion is an additional element to perhaps also provide a specific focus on this part. Then Jonas also mentioned the single market
program, and there we have different support measures for SMEs, and we're working now on one for next year, which is linked to the objectives of the EU Code of Conduct on Sustainable Food Business. And of course, alternative proteins, given their impact on and linked to sustainability, can be one element and can be covered by the objectives of this code. So under this SMP call, we will provide support for cluster collaboration on the different objectives of the Code of Conduct. So the focus is on resource efficiency, but it will be open also to other areas and objectives of the code. So this is just to mention one example that we are particularly working on. And third, again mentioned by Jonas, we're working on a transition pathway for what we call the agri-food industrial ecosystem, which has an ecosystem view, but it will focus really on the middle of the chain and what can be what steps need to be taken by all stakeholders, but specifically in the middle of the chain with the support of other stakeholders for the transition, which covers not only sustainable, but also digital. So I don't know what, perhaps I didn't hear it much today, but what is the role of digital perhaps for this field as well in terms of spreading information, perhaps to consumers, linked to consumers, as an additional element. So this pathway will be a co-creation process with different stakeholders, and this process will be launched probably either just shortly before the summer or right after the summer. So it's an additional work stream in which investment, as I said, digitalization will also be key elements, because we look at the digital and sustainability transition, and obviously the economic sustainability is part of the discussion.
Okay, thank you for your very clear and detailed answer. And thanks also to Jonas. I don't know if there's someone that wants to add something to this topic. I think it's important to help these small and medium enterprises, and sometimes the people involved are not really informed about the opportunities that they have and that DG AGRI now have listed. So I think also promotion of these opportunities could be a key point. So I see Joao.
Hello.
Yeah.
Just
hello.
I just to want to emphasize that eventually scale is not the solution, because scale is already taken. You know, when we see the farms for soy, scale is there. Scale in the fishing boat with that huge nets taking biomass out from the sea. Eventually, scale is not the solution. We need to find smarter ways. We need to find other ways. We are very, very far from being able to competing with the, sorry to repeat myself, with the business as usual, with the actual economic model. I don't even think it is possible. Of course, it is very interesting. This helps to the SMEs in order they to grow, but if they don't grow in the value chain, they will not survive. A SME cannot grow for the commodity market, because commodity market is taken, and the economic model don't allow an SME to reach the size or the business of a big corporation that is already installed in the market. We always look for value. We always look for scale up, but scale up also in value, unless it will the company will not be sustainable.
Okay, Joe. So, what is the solution that you will propose? What are your proposal about this? I mean, I know that is
Yes,
a complicated topic.
It is very, very complicated, but I think this is in the hands of the politics now. If we really want a sustainable world, if we really want to change our way of producing our food, it will pass through taxes. eventually it will pass through closing the borders for some goods. Eventually it will pass through very nasty decisions. But if we in fact want to give a planet to our children, eventually we need to have bad decisions, and we need to struggle. We need to do something well more out of the box than what we are doing now, which is, well, let's talk, let's put someone in research, let tell people that this is better than the other things, let educate the consumers. I think that it is not enough. We need to have stronger policies. Taxing the unsustainable products, for example, will be nice.
Okay, thanks for your input. This is a good point of discussion. I saw that there are other hands raised. Cindy, do you want to add something?
Yes, on this point, I wanted to mention two things in terms when we start talking about scaling things up. The first thing is the EIC, so that the European Innovation Council, they have accelerator programs. And so they are supporting basically SMEs, including also startups, to basically develop and to scale up their innovation. And so they do that through grants or through investments. And so every year they have a work program. So that could be also one option for SMEs to receive fundings to then scale things up. So that's one element. The second one I wanted to mention is a little bit similar. It's related to EIT food. And EIT food is also funded by the EU, and they have let's say an entrepreneurship program. So basically here they focus especially on startups, and in these entrepreneurship programs they have like a seedbed incubators, they have also an accelerator program, and they have what they call rising food stars also to scale things up. So there are definitely elements in place to help SMEs get the funding necessary to scale their innovation or their research innovation out. So I just wanted to mention both of them to you.
Okay, thank you. So also Emanuele, do you want to?
Yes. Yeah, just a very quick comment, Fabio. Definitely, you know, the solution of tax, you know, it's hiding some risk. For example, I mean, only people that basically can afford can actually pay and buy unsustainable food products. So we need to keep in mind that basically our transition has to be also fair, just for everybody. So definitely, I don't know how this tax, you know, let's say solution could actually work, but definitely what I think is more important that our politicians will actually start believing that this transition is needed, and it's a transition that basically will take years, but basically it needs to start convincing society that basically that's the way to go.
Yeah, good point. Sometimes, but also sometimes it's difficult to convince the society about this, because when you have higher price and sometimes the people are not going for the right choice, but for the best choice for their, let's say, economical availabilities. So I think we can pass to the second question. There is no other comments. And the second question, I would like to ask EFSA for addressing this. I don't know if Dr. Berveris is still in the discussion. Is still in the meeting.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So good morning. And yeah, the question is how the differences among the European Union member states and other countries' regulation do you think you could influence the innovation and competitiveness level of the European companies?
I think this is a question more suitable for policymakers and regulators like Commission and Member States, but indeed we have different regulatory frameworks to which food producers have to comply. But as we discussed before, also regarding novel food regulation, there are like innovation, promotion of innovation is still in the agenda of the European Union, because it is recognized that there must be some incentives for the industry, towards the industry and the food producers to go for this innovation. However, at the same time, we must ensure that everything that is introduced to the EU market is safe for those that consume it. But also there are several activities like EU-funded projects that promote the cooperation between industry and academia towards investigating new food sources, for example. And these projects, these collaborations should also take into consideration food safety aspects, because the important thing is that all these products, when designed, they take into account also the food safety aspects and compliance with all the existing EU regulatory frameworks.
Okay, so thanks. Your answer was really clear. I don't know if someone wants to add a comment, maybe someone from the...
Yes, Fabio.
Yeah.
I think this is a major issue. We in the European Union, regulation, it's a nightmare, and the other countries outcompete us in this. For example, people told about the novel food regulation. We in our company are starting processes in order to deploy new products in the market, but we are doing it through GRAS. We are doing a GRAS authorization in order to reach the United States market, because in Europe it is really a nightmare. It will take 5-6 years in order to get a product approved, but it is even nonsense. And then if you want to approve the same product for a cosmetic ingredient, you have another hurdle, another dossier to fill, another time to wait, another money to spend. And then if you want to do the same thing for feed, you need to do it all over again, to spend money again, to wait time again. It is really a nightmare, and it's taking us out of competition in the world. In fact, if we develop a new product for the market and we want to reach the market fast, better we go to China and we produce it there, and then we import it to the European Union, because it's much easier to import products from other countries than to have authorization to produce it in European Union. This makes no sense, and this is destroying our economy and our potential. And eventually it is necessary for all the DGs to sit down together and to see the regulatory framework of each one and try to figure out a way of having a common body in order to at least at once, well, to authorize something for cosmetic, from feed, from food, from whatever. There are a lot of things that can be used in all the regulatory framework. So we need someone to look at the regulatory framework and to simplify it. Unless we will lose competition, we are already losing. We prefer to sell in other countries in the world and not in Europe, because we don't want to pass through all this regulatory nightmare.
Okay, thanks, Joao. It's interesting to see the point of view also of the producers and of the industry. Anyone wants to add anything? No? So maybe we can go through. Are there any questions from the pool, Mari?
No, there are no questions for now.
Okay, we have the third question. I think we already discussed a little bit about this in the past discussion, and was for the DG Grow again. Okay, Emanuele, do you want to
Fabio,
comment about this?
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand where this discussion come from, and also from a EU level, the EU actually used the precaution approach. So this is the approach that basically has been regulated, our food system in Europe. But that could be also interesting to see. So far, other countries, other continents actually using a different approach that basically seems still, protect consumer health, but at the same time seems more, prone to support company in their innovation. So potentially it could be a question mark for the new authorities to rethink the approach, they have been taken so far, and potentially restructuring it. I don't know. I'm just, it's a dream thing, but it could be something that basically we should take in consideration. I mean, definitely there is now is a very solid background on some of the knowledge and activity and process and production that basically could actually let us understand that there is no reason to be so strict sometimes, or to have such very, let's say, hard approach or difficult approach for company to be innovative and to be, first on the market with some technology or some products.
Yes, yeah, the point of view of EFSA is understandable. I mean, the safe point of view, the safe question is very important for foods, but at the same time, the novel food regulation as it is limiting the power of small companies, because it's not cheap to apply to these procedures, and also takes long time, so they are sometimes, let's say, not encouraged to go through this process.
Yes, but my point is, do you think that the America, the United States, has no care of human health, on the safety of consumers? That's also my point. So why
I
it's
suppose
much easier for
but
them? It's a question mark for everybody. That isn't something that I think we should look at.
Okay, I saw one raised hand from Hans, and then maybe we can ask Ermolaus to reply. Ermolaus from EFSA. Go on.
Yes, thank you, Fabio. To tap in with the last remark, I also pasted in the chat that in the Giant Leaps project, we are developing a couple of policy briefs, and one of them will probably be in the area of an overview of novel foods, grass, etc. across the globe, including the scientific requirements, which are typically quite similar, but the basis of approval are quite different. And indeed, grass, especially self-grass in the US, is relatively swift. In EFSA, it is very tough, but it takes a while. And I think it's good for policy briefs who are intended to inform stakeholders, and in particular policy makers, what are the differences with the implicit possibilities and, let's say, hurdles to be identified. And I already pasted in the previous discussion that other projects, not only Giant Leaps, are cordially invited to contribute to the development of our policy briefs. You will not get paid from it except for fun and co-authorships. So thanks. Liaise with me via the Giant Leaps general email.
Yeah, thanks for your opinion about this. I would like to ask to Dr. Ververis if wants to reply. So hand raised.
Thank you. So just following this very interesting discussion, I would like to highlight that at least in the novel foods area, the products either produced within the European Union or outside in the European Union, they are subject to the same rules and the same assessment. And also, indeed, the EU safety assessment environment is one of the most detailed, I would say, in the world. And in some cases, it has happened, like in our working area, to find out that foods consumed elsewhere were not proven to be safe, either because there were not enough data to prove the safety of these foods, or because during our assessment, we identified some safety, some concerns regarding their safety. So I just wanted to highlight, just to contribute to this conversation. And of course, EFSA is not making the regulations and the legislative framework. We, for example, in the novel foods, we assess what arrives to us from the risk managers. But of course, all these elements and experience gates could be put together to discuss with the policymakers if any changes in the future in the regulatory framework could be done, and how this could be achieved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your point of view. I don't know if there are other inputs about this topic. I think maybe in a last comment, maybe in a let's say hypothetical world where all the people live together in peace and love, could be nice to see a consortium or cluster of people interested in the novel food approval, maybe asking together and going to submit a dossier all together to trying to let's say get these products in the market. But of course, it's not easy to do this, and sometimes the big companies are going for the first, so just to have the, let's say, the opportunity to have the product just for them for 5 years. Yeah, yes. Go.
5 minutes left now.
Yeah, go over.
So that's what a point on this aspect. This is not something for the future. Actually, it is a reality that's happening now. We have dossiers from joint efforts from different companies that they put together the data, and they do a joint novel food application. So this is actually already happening in some areas.
Okay, nice, because yes, in this way they can save money. Let's say they can divide the cost among the different companies, and also they can involve more facilities to this production. Any other comment? I think we can skip the last question because we already talked about the sustainable development, and I don't know if there's someone that wants to add anything else. If not, maybe we can go for the next point of the agenda.
Much, Fabio. I think we will just do that, Mary.
Yes, thanks, Fabio, for closing this plenary discussion. To follow up on our agenda, we would then go on with closing remarks. So I will give the floor to Paul Voss from Giant Leaps and to Morena Silvestrini from LIKE. Please, the floor is yours.
So thank you, Marie, and thank you to all the chairs of the different discussion rounds and all the contributors to this discussion. I think this has been really interesting and important discussions to be had across these different relevant domains. From the point of view from Giant Leaps, of course, where we are just starting out with the project, I think we are trying to touch on important areas that have been addressed now, and that we hope during the let's say the course of the project to add more maybe detail or scientific data and value too. And I think there's been discussions on, let's say, the integrated approach that is, I guess, inherent to the farm to fork strategy that is needed on the level of policy. That is also, I think I see a parallel there of this integration that is needed across the different domains and policy areas that is also needed on the scientific level, and I guess what we're trying to do within Giant Leaps, so to make an assessment across the different scientific domains, so to have this integrated approach, I guess on all different levels, and where we also will try to address, let's say, different policies and integrated policies with advice from our project more towards the end of the project. I think also the element of providing information to consumers is very important. What we started out with in the first plenary discussion. I think Cindy mentioned that it's very important to avoid confusion. And I think this is very important if we're communicating about diversifying protein sources within the diets and communicating about the benefits on sustainability elements as well as health elements. It is very important to have the right science at the basis of the communication and then to communicate it in the right way. Also to avoid confusion with, for instance, dietary guidelines or other guidelines that are currently existing. So this is very important to follow up on and also to align, I guess, between science and the different policy makers and the different bodies that in the end communicate, the different actors that communicate to consumers. And I think also here, again, the integrated approach is necessary to harmonize, what was also mentioned, harmonize across different methodologies, for instance, in vitro and in vivo methodologies to estimate health and safety impacts, I guess also to address sustainability impacts, to harmonize there across the different areas. And then I think on the last part regarding economic development, I think the dilemma was discussed a lot between, I guess, the ambition that the EU has on being the first continent to be climate neutral, and with all the challenges that come along with that, but in the same time, which poses a challenge to the economic competitiveness of this approach, because it relates to novel food regulation and other regulations. And I guess there it is very important to try to establish what is necessary in relation to, for instance, novel food regulations and the data that needs to be generated in relation to alternative proteins. We will try to address that within Giant Leaps to create more clarity on that. We will also address different I'd say examples of different protein categories of what is needed regarding scientific data. Well, I guess in the end there, to maintain the quality of the assessment, but to establish whether novel methodologies or certain types of data can be prioritized and thereby to improve and speed up the process. I think these are all very important areas to address, and where we are looking forward from the Giant Leaps perspective to contribute to with our work. With that, I give the floor to Marie or to Morena. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I completely agree with you, and indeed, I would just like to conclude. I would just to recap some of the key points that have been raised during the presentation and the discussion today. So first, financial support needed here for SMEs, for producers, for farmers, not only to encourage them to diversify protein sources, but also to help them to be competitive, as mentioned before, with actual economic model. Policy coherence is also needed here by promoting an holistic approach, giving clear definitions, clear objectives to be achieved with sustainable foods, and simplification as well of the regulatory framework here, while maintaining the safety and the standards, okay, of the EU process, and this is also to ensure and to guarantee the safety and health of consumers. That's also key here. And apart from this, it's also important to foster collaboration between all the key players involved in the process. It's also a key here to provide clear information to consumers, information about benefits of the alternative proteins, and yeah, that's why, as mentioned during our conversation, it's key also to keep working on informing consumers, to media, to different bodies that we mentioned at the beginning during the first plenary discussion, and to labeling, etc. So it is clear here that more efforts need to be made in this direction, and of course, like a pro together with Giant Leaps and all the other projects involved in this Horizon4Protein initiative will provide this efforts and yeah, support in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much, Morena. To talk about, as a very ending of our discussion today, I would like to give the word to our project officer and policy officer, so Amanda and Cindy. Would you like to give us a short outlook about possible next steps, please? Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, next steps for me in terms of project management are quite clear. I just want to say it was a pleasure for me to listen and learn today. It's just, as Paul said at the beginning, the director of our unit, of our department, it's just wonderful when we see projects clustering together, working together, and synergizing in such an effective way that you are. I'm so pleased to put the names and faces to the emails, not only meet all of the researchers involved in the projects, but today was very special, meeting the policy officers from the different DGs and having our sister agency EFSA represented by Ermelaus. So that's a big thank you to Cindy as the lead and my partner policy officer. I do hope as next steps, of course, we will share the talks that were given today. They were really insightful and a very nice overview. I assume that Horizon4Proteins might publish this recording and advertise it as a webinar. I think that would be excellent. What else can I say? I think next steps, we have 3 projects ending, but we can see that they continue under the auspices of Giant Leaps and Like a Pro. So I hope you all do stay together. And from my side, I might be new to the B unit since last year, but you can count on me to stay with you and be committed to help you with your projects till the end. And for that, I look forward to meet you in Netherlands, in Germany, and in Brussels in September in person, and hopefully tasting some of your results on the menu. So thank you so much, and over to you, Cindy. Thank you for your contribution.
Thanks, Amanda. Big thank you from my side as well. That was a very good discussion. Obviously, there were some elements that will require much more than 3 hours to go to the bottom of it, if that's even possible to do so. But still, it's actually a great start and a very good discussion. On my side, yes, for the next step, I noticed a couple of things that has been said during this meeting today. I heard the request from SUSINCHAIN regarding the final event. I think it's on the 27th of September, but I think that's a remark I wanted to make to all of you of all 4 projects that are ending soon. Please know that on the 27th and 28th of September, we have the info days for Horizon Europe Cluster 6 Work Program 2024. And I'm personally coordinator of Destination 2 and Farm to Fork, so I will be stuck there. I don't have the agenda, so I don't know for how long, but I cannot skip it. So that's why maybe you didn't have a reply on my side. But that's the reason why. As soon as I know more about when I will have to be there, I'll see if I can then join your meeting remotely. But that's so far I cannot tell more about that. Yes, and last point in terms of next step that I would very much like to know, for Giant Leaps and LicoPro, you mentioned that you're going to draft several policy briefs. That would be quite interesting for us, not just for me, but also for my unit or for the other policy officers. That would be quite interesting for us to know when you are planning to draft it. If you want another meetings, yeah, just so that we have a little bit of clarity on time scale on your side. Voila, that's it on my side. Really, very grateful for this meeting. It was very interesting. I learned a lot of stuff, so that's good. And I also wanted to thank my colleagues in other DGs, if they are still around, for their presence today. I think it was quite good to have the point of view also from policy DGs, such as SANTE, AGRI, and DG AGRI. So thanks a lot for this.
Thank you very much. So I'll give the word of the end. So thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for all the speakers to contribute with their insights in the different aspects. I think the discussion was very good. I agree. Thank you for the audience as well for your comments. All the polls on Mentimeter are still open, so if you want to add some comments that just happened to your mind right now, please don't hesitate. And on these last words, yeah, I think we can close today's meeting and wish you all the best for the coming work. And sure, we'll talk again, at least hopefully in September and around the next policy table on Horizon 4 Proteins. Thank you.